news from where you live, and ambulance bosses say lessons have been learned following the death of a Norwich toddler who was misdiagnosed with swine flu. An internal investigation has concluded that 2-year-old Georgia Keeling from West Earlham died after contracting an aggressive form of the Streptococcus A infection. Today, the East of England Ambulance Trust offered its condolences to her parents and said steps were being taken to prevent a similar mistake in future.
Not everything is swine flu, and we have made the major point to our ambulance staff that go from square one, consider every case as a single case and don't get overwhelmed by what's happening outside in the community. Take every person as an individual case.
Police are investigating 2 alleged assaults on women in Suffolk. The first happened at a lay-by on the A1071 at Hintlesham late last night. Police are appealing for witnesses. They also want to speak to anyone who was near the Territorial Army Centre in Bury St Edmunds between Tuesday evening and yesterday morning. They're not linking the incidents.
A mother from Colchester whose family's been blighted by bipolar disorder has written a book on how to deal with it.
Sarah Owen's father suffered with a mental illness, also known as manic depression. The book, which she wrote with her cousin, relates their experiences and offers practical advice. Lorna Ramsey has more.
At the age of 4, 8 and 10, mental health is not exactly on the minds of these children. But it's something their mother, Sarah Owen from Colchester, is only too aware of. Bipolar disorder or manic depression has plagued her family for generations. Her father Jim suffered with it before he died in 1987. But writing a book about the condition has helped Sarah come to terms with it.
Before I wrote the book, I was absolutely terrified that either myself or one of my 3 children, I've got 3 sons, would develop the condition, because I'd only ever really looked at the very negative aspects of it.
Bipolar disorder is thought to be caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain. Sufferers have extreme moods which can last for several weeks or longer. It affects 1 in 50 people, but a blood link doubles the risk.
Of all the psychiatric diseases, bipolar is one of the most intergenerational or familial. So if a relative, a first-degree relative, so your mother or father has it, there's around 20% chance, 10 to 20% chance that one of the sons or daughters could have that. Increasingly there's a lot of research going into it, but as long as we can engage with someone early on, we can help them turn their lives around and learn to manage what is a repeating and cyclical condition.
Sarah wrote the book with her cousin Amanda Saunders. They say the book answers all the questions they had when their families were diagnosed with bipolar. They just hope it will do the same for others. Lorna Ramsey, Anglia News, Colchester.
200 postal workers in King's Lynn and Peterborough have been staging the latest in a series of strikes. Members of the Communication Workers Union walked out in their dispute with Royal Mail over cuts, pay and conditions. Royal Mail says it's trying to keep disruption to customers to a minimum.
Now, it would be a pretty great achievement for most families if even one member reached the top of the British Water Skiing League. But the Turps from Gosfield near Helsted in Essex have national champions spanning 3 generations.
They own and run Gosfield Lake Resort, where recently they took away even more medals. Victoria Webb has our report.
Barely a day goes by when Carl Turp isn't in the water. At the age of 66, he's just as keen a water skier as he ever was, and it seems to run in the family. This is his son Vince, and 2 of his grandchildren, Billy and Ben.
We've been to umpteen competitions together, and it's quite a good thing to see 3 generations.
It doesn't feel weird at the time, it's just something that you do, and it's not probably until you get to school or later in life that you realise that everybody doesn't do it, whereas in our little world everybody does.
The whole family has grown up here since Carl bought the resort 26 years ago. Since then, they've picked up a number of medals between them. This year alone at the National Water Skiing Championships, they got 7 golds and 4 silver medals.
With your home being a water ski centre, it's not surprising that 9-year-old Ben took up the sport at the age of 2.5. Here he's slalom skiing, using just 1 ski to move around the boys. Despite being the youngest competitor in his category at this year's Under-21 Championships, he won the overall title in the Under-10s. His cousin Billy, who's reaching around 60 miles per hour jumping here, took home 2 bronze and 2 silver medals in his first year competing in the under-17 age category.
I love watching my granddad because every time he falls around the buoy, he looks really funny.
It's very inspiring, and yeah, I really look up to him.
Sebastian is one of the latest additions to the Turp family, and I'm sure it won't be long before he follows in the footsteps of his brother Ben, his cousin, his dad and his granddad to become one of the best water skiers in the country. Victoria Webb, Anglia News, Gosfield.
They make it look so easy. Now, staff at a Norwich Centre for Arts, which needs to raise at least £50,000 in extra funding, say they're delighted with the support they've received so far. The King of Hearts has been hit hard by the recession and also has expensive repair bills. This week, several senior politicians have visited the venue to show their backing.
Now, 70 years ago, on September the 3rd, 1939, a radio announcement was made that would change the world forever.
At 11:15 that morning, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain announced to the nation that following Hitler's invasion of Poland, Britain was at war with Germany. It was a conflict that went on to claim millions of lives.
This region played a major part in the Allied campaign, with bombers and fighter planes stationed at airfields scattered across East Anglia.
Among the frontline bases was RAF Duxford in Cambridgeshire.
It's now part of the Imperial War Museum, and to mark the anniversary of the start of the war, an evocative exhibition of photographs showing how Duxford prepared for those dark days of conflict was launched today.
Every community made so many sacrifices, and Malcolm Robertson has been finding out today how people in one Norfolk village remember the war.
Old Buckenham, a village some 20 miles to the southwest of Norwich. In many ways a typical rural village. The setting up of the fair on the village green providing it with a vibrancy it doesn't often have. Muriel Large has lived here all her life. She'll be 90 next year and well remembers that fateful day, September the 3rd, 1939, when Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain addressed the nation.
This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note.
Well, I was at home in our kitchen with my mother and father and sister, and also someone who was on the reserve of the army. His name was Bob Jolly.
I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
Muriel's family had been half expecting the news, but it still came as quite a shock. Chamberlain's announcement meant an immediate call-up for the reservists staying with them.
Well, I think we were devastated, really, because that was going to change all our lives. No one wants war.
This rather grainy photograph is the only one Muriel has of her wedding day, September the 6th, 1942. This picture also shows a happy occasion with some friends at the end of the war. But Muriel Large has also known a lot of sad occasions. On the War Memorial in Old Buckenham, she pointed out the names of several people from the village who'd lost their lives in action.
Harry Pretty, he was once living with my mother as a lodger, and his brother, Horatio. In fact, I was quite fond of him.
As the war progressed, the local airfield in Old Buckenham became home to thousands of American servicemen, among them Major James Stewart, the Hollywood film star, who flew from here and nearby Tibenham. Olive Schickel was just 4 at the outbreak of war. She remembers the Americans at Old Buckenham, hosting great parties for children and being picked up in their big trucks. She also recalls just how terrifying those years could be.
When we heard bombers coming over, heard the noise, and us and the evacuee got underneath the table because we were so frightened, and heard them bombing Norwich, dropping the bombs on Norwich.
The Americans also paid a heavy price while they served in Norfolk. Locally, there are a number of people with vivid memories and still some mementos of a very significant day in Britain's history. Malcolm Robertson, Anglia News, Old Buckenham.
Well, when war broke out, the demand for planes by the